All right, we are rolling, we are recording. And full screen with this. Oh, we already have a bunch of people rolling in. Welcome, everyone. We are gonna give it a few minutes or a minute or two really to let people come in, and the webinar is being recorded in case you miss anything. We'll send it out. Welcome. All right. Let's see. Go back. Welcome again, everyone. Give it another minute. Get a few more people in here.
Let everyone get their lunch set up.
Oh yeah, luncheon while they attend.
Yep.
I've got a snack myself,
Good.
and I'll put it in the chat as well, just in case people come in after we start. Once again, it is being recorded. We will send it out at the end so that you have access to it. And yeah. Hope everyone's having a good day. Happy Friday. One day before the weekend. It looks like it's going to be a nice one.
Sure does.
Yeah. And all right. Well, in the interest of time, let's get things going here. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining Score Main today. My name is Jasper. I'm with the whole chapter here. I'm based in Portland, but we are joined here today by Frances of Modern Bookkeeping, and she's here to talk about bookkeeping for your business, for your small businesses. Um, Today's event will be about an hour long, and it is being recorded once again, and we'll have that recording for everyone at the end. And our sponsor today is the Maine Technology Institute. We uh, work great with them. They're awesome to work with, and we really thank them for their support. We'll save questions for the end, but feel free to queue them up in the Q&A tab or in the chat. Without further ado, Frances, why don't you take it away?
Okay, welcome everyone. I hope you're having a great Friday and a great lunchtime lunch and learn here. Okay, we're going to talk about small bookkeeping for your business. Not small bookkeeping, simple bookkeeping for your business. And what I want to focus on today is helping you feel more confident in your small business bookkeeping, feeling a little less overwhelmed. And my goal today is to provide you with a few key takeaways so that you can feel more supported, know what's going on, get your bookkeeping done better. I am Frances Keil. I'm the owner of Modern Bookkeeping Services. I am also a garden lover, baking aficionado, and I'm a former Spanish teacher. So that's where my love of teaching comes from. A little disclaimer before we get started. The information in this presentation is for informational purposes only, so it should not be construed as tax, legal, or financial advice in any way, shape, or form. Contact your pros for that sort of thing. Okay, before we get started, I want to talk about why bookkeeping is important. I think often business owners hear that they need to be doing bookkeeping, but they don't really understand completely why. So here are some of the reasons why bookkeeping is really important. First of all, it's legally required. You have to have that documentation and financial statements. Super important for tax filing. This really helps you to get the appropriate return, to provide your accountant the information they need. And it makes the whole process so much easier and less stressful for you. Proper categorization, which is an important aspect of bookkeeping, also helps you get that appropriate return. Very important. Another reason why bookkeeping is important is the information. So bookkeeping can provide you a lot of information about what's going on in your business, and that can allow you to make better decisions in the future. It can help you determine how much to pay yourself, how to curb expenses that might have run wild, and to plan for slow periods or seasonality. This is particularly important for Maine businesses because there's a lot of seasonality in pretty much every Maine business, whether that's a super, super busy season or a super, super quiet season. If you have good financial records from bookkeeping, that can really help you plan for those accordingly. Can also help you hone in on really big revenue opportunities. If you have a few streams of income from your business, if you have good tracking on that, you can help figure out where to focus your energy, your marketing, all of that. It's also necessary to get business loans. If you have good bookkeeping, it's super easy to just print out your most up-to-date financial statements, take them to your loan officer and say, hey, we need a business loan. If you don't have that, it can be really challenging. And then one thing that a lot of people don't think about is actually the sale of your business. So someday, maybe next year, maybe 20 years from now, you might decide, hey, I'm done with this business I've put my time into and I would like to sell it. And if you've had good bookkeeping, it makes it much more appealing to a buyer, and it helps you determine a really accurate value so that you know you're getting the business's worth. So that's a really long-term goal of bookkeeping, but something to keep in mind. Okay, so what's the goal of all this bookkeeping stuff we're about to talk about? Keeping accurate financial records, that is probably the most important. Easy, accurate, timely tax filing, getting that appropriate tax return I was talking about, and then learning about your business's past financial performance. And that's the part that can provide you all that helpful info. So let's talk about some best practices. These are kind of high-level things that can help you get set up with good bookkeeping, and are really important for you to hit. So first thing is keeping your personal and business accounts separate. This can be hard to do when you're just starting out and you buy things from your personal and deposit checks into your personal, but as you get more established, really helpful and a great best practice to keep those separate. Other thing we need to do is track and categorize both expenses and income. Maintain supporting documentation. So that's sales receipts, invoices, expense receipts, check stubs, bills. Maintaining that documentation is another best practice, and you need to find a process for that as well. We'll talk about that later. And then internal controls. So this is a little bit less relevant when you're super small and you're doing everything yourself, but as your business grows, you want to have some internal controls. For example, the person who's writing your checks, maybe you have an operations manager, they write checks to your vendors to pay them. That person should not be the same person that's reconciling the accounts at the end of the month. So that's an internal control to have set up. And finally, reconciling your accounts against the statements. So reconciliation is essentially making sure that your record keeping matches your bank balance. And that's an essential part to make sure that your bookkeeping is accurate. Oh, and finally, make sure you have an accountant that you trust and understand. When you talk to them, do you come away from the conversation having more information, having more understanding of what's going on in your business? Do you feel comfortable asking them questions? Do you get good answers that you feel like you can digest and utilize? So having an accountant that you trust and understand, so valuable. And that's going to be different for everyone. Everyone has a different way of speaking, learning, communicating. So finding someone that's a good fit for you, super important. Okay, keeping it simple. So all this bookkeeping stuff can sound a little overwhelming, and one of the things we want to do is keep it simple. So we're remembering that the goal overall is accurate, timely bookkeeping. We don't want to overcomplicate it. It's better for you to have simple, accurate bookkeeping that you can complete and is accurate than to track every single little type of income. That's something I see a lot when people bring their bookkeeping to me. they've been trying to track 20 different services. You know, if they have a landscaping business, maybe lawn mowing, gardening, weed whacking, snow plowing, all of these separate things. And maybe it's better to simplify it and just track landscaping income and snow plowing income, and that can provide enough information. So really making sure that you're not overcomplicating things for yourself, and then making it repeatable. So making it repeatable just means you can follow the same steps and process every month. That's going to make sure that it's the most accurate and simplified as possible. Okay, manageable. You want to make sure you really know what you need to do. That way you can put it into your work schedule and workflow. If you don't know what you need to do or the scope of it feels so large, it's hard to take it down and schedule that into your calendar. So we're going to talk about the tasks and kind of how to manage that a little bit more, but keeping in mind, how can we make this more manageable? So simplified, repeatable, manageable. Okay, let's talk about simplifying your bookkeeping. The questions that you want to ask when you're creating your bookkeeping setup, thinking about your workflow, all of that is it simple and repeatable? So simple and repeatable, ensure that your business and personal accounts are separate. This will save you so much headache. And also, if you are an LLC or corporation, you really do need to keep these separate because it can open you up to some liability if you don't. So there's multiple reasons there to keep those separate. Use really simple categories. So just like the general IRS categories are a great place to start, but make sure you understand what they mean. So for example, a lot of people get confused about owner's distributions, and they don't know what that means. But if you retitle that in your bookkeeping to owner's pay and personal expenses, that might make more sense to you. So making sure that those categories really click with how your brain works is going to make your bookkeeping more successful. So little changes like that can make a big difference. And then finally, have systems and a dedicated bookkeeping time. This is gonna the ultimate simple and repeatable. Okay, let's talk about actually doing the bookkeeping. So bookkeeping tasks, what does that even involve? Receiving payments, so that's matching your payments to your invoices or sales receipts, and then recording the bank deposits. That's always the good part, right? Depositing the money, but we need to have a record of where it came from and what it matched to. Entering and paying bills, so also need to know what those are. Organizing your receipts, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Entering and categorizing your transactions, so making sure everything's accurately entered and then has a category to go with it. Reconciling your accounts, again, that's making sure that all of your bookkeeping records match your bank statements or credit card statements, loan statements, all of that. And then this is kind of getting into the realm of things that maybe you wouldn't do if you're just doing your bookkeeping for a really small business, but tracking assets and liabilities. Often your accountant is going to help with this. Preparing financial statements. So, daily and weekly bookkeeping tasks. These are the foundation of good bookkeeping. These are the things you're going to do the most often. So that's accounts receivable. That means you're sending invoices, sending your sales receipts, receiving and matching payments to records, recording deposits, and then you have your accounts payable. That's the bills side. So entering bills, paying bills, and yeah, I was receipt management, recording expenses, and organizing and maintaining receipts. Again, we're going to get into the whole receipt thing later, because finding a good system for that is really important as well. Okay, in addition to or as part of the daily and weekly bookkeeping tasks, we have transactions and categorization. This is really the lifeblood of good bookkeeping and can be a bit of an area of confusion for people. So entering transactions, really most of this is done with those essential tasks that I just covered. Entering bills, entering invoices, all of that. We ask ourselves, have all the bills been entered? Have all the sales been entered? Have all my expenses been entered? All my credit card payments, loan payments, payroll costs. Even if you write a check to a contractor, did you record that check written? And then categorization. This is essentially saying, where was this money earned from? And what was the money spent on? Okay. Accurate categorization is the most important aspect of good bookkeeping, in my opinion. Others might disagree. And so we're going to dive a little deeper into that. So categorization all comes from the chart of accounts. You might have heard of the chart of accounts talked about, and there are 5 main account types in the chart of accounts. You have asset accounts. That's where you record things that the business owns. Maybe the business owns a tractor. That's an asset. Liability accounts, that's where you record things that the business owes. Maybe in order to buy that tractor, the business took out a loan. That would be a liability account. Equity account. So that's where you record funds that were brought in or out of the business by the owners or partners. Maybe you contributed $5,000 to start up the business. That would be your equity. And then we have revenue accounts. That's where you record money received. And expense accounts. That's where you record money paid out by the business. Most of the time, in the daily, weekly, even monthly bookkeeping tasks, you're mostly going to be dealing with revenue and expense accounts. So revenue accounts, within that we have our sub-accounts or categories. So common revenue accounts are sales of product, that's where you sell a good, sales of services, interest earned, miscellaneous income, that might be grant income or something like that. And then on the expense side, you're going to have things like advertising, freight, office expenses, rent, utilities, salaries, wages, insurance. There's so many on the expense side. And so this is where you want to make sure that the categories work with language you understand. So for example, if your chart of accounts was set up with freight, but every time you see a charge for freight, you think of shipping, I would just change the category language from freight to shipping. That way you're going to be able to repeat accurately that same categorization. It's going to be quick and easy in your brain, and you're going to go, oh yeah, shipping, exactly. You know exactly where to put that. Okay, so that's just one example. Same goes with rent and lease. If you have rent in your chart of accounts, but really you think of it as your lease payment, then you would just want to swap those words. You want the chart of accounts to make sense to you so that you can use it repeatedly, accurately. Okay, so setting yourself up for success. One part of this is choosing the right bookkeeping system. We're going to get into that. Dealing with the dreaded receipts, setting up some good processes for yourself, and time. Okay. So, biggest question I get is, what do I use to do my bookkeeping? Let's talk about choosing the right system for your business. So, first thing, this is the foundation of your bookkeeping. Whatever you choose is what you're going to be interacting with over and over and over again. You want to think about, what functions do you need? What functions are essential? What functions would be nice to haves? What do you need? What is your level of tech confidence? I think this is an overlooked question and consideration sometimes. Are you someone that never wants to be on a computer again and had a fear of joining this Zoom meeting today? Or are you super tech confident and that's the easiest, breeziest thing for you? So that's a consideration as well. And then, is it scalable as my business grows? You want to choose something that's going to grow with your business or at least work for the next few years. Although you can change accounting systems, it does take extra time. And my guess is, as a small business owner, you don't have an abundance of that. And so you want to choose something that's going to scale with you. Okay, first option you have is manual. This is your pen and paper option. This requires more setup and maintenance and know-how and physical journals, all sorts of exciting things if you like paper. It's probably the most time-consuming thing because you have to physically do everything. But it's really great if you don't want to use technology, if you're patient, if you have great organizational and paper management skills. If you're the kind of person that knows where your January oil bill from 7 years ago is and can find it like that, this is a great system for you if you have paper management skills totally dialed in. On the other hand, you might want to go for a spreadsheet. This is great for basic bookkeeping. I see this being really great for lots of consultants, freelancers starting out. It's really good if you're only trying to track revenue and expense accounts. It's really difficult if you have a lot of assets or inventory or liabilities that you need to track. So not good for businesses with a lot of equipment. I really don't recommend the spreadsheet for that. And of course, it requires manual entry and categorization of transactions. So you do have to physically enter them, have to be comfortable with a spreadsheet. But it can provide basic profit and loss information, really good tracking on expenses. Spreadsheet is great for folks who are just starting out with a small, simple business model, no inventory to track, comfortable with tech basics. Again, I see this being kind of the sweet spot for it is for freelancers just starting out with some sort of consulting service-based business, not many clients, not too many transactions every month. I think once you get over about 30 transactions a month or multiple bank accounts or credit cards or whatever, this is going to start to not fit your business anymore. I do have a basic bookkeeping worksheet and tutorial video linked here. So when the presentation slides get sent out afterwards, you'll be able to link to that. If you think the spreadsheet might be a good fit for you, that can be a good place to start. Okay, the next step up is the accounting software. Before we get into this, I am pretty much only going to cover cloud-based softwares today, online softwares, in part because the desktop versions are being really heavily phased out. And the ones that are still in use are usually much more expensive, more robust, really for medium to large size businesses. So that's why I'm not covering those today. But the advantage of the accounting software is more things are done for you. So less manual entry for sure. Transactions are imported automatically, easy reconciliation, really professional financial reports that you can create super easily. Great invoicing that you can customize. And then a lot of them include some form of receipt management. So starter option for this is Wave Accounting. Wave Accounting has a free option, and then the pro option is like $17 or something a month, very affordable. It's great for intermediate bookkeeping, especially if you need invoicing. So Wave has some great invoicing. If you're invoicing customers, that alone can make it worth it to have all your accounting in one place. QuickBooks Online, this is the most well-known accounting software in the United States. Super easy to find help and education on. Your accountant pretty much guaranteed they're going to know how to use it and be comfortable with it. So that's great. There's a lot of tiers and services and pricing levels. You can kind of choose what fits for you. But it can get expensive depending on what your needs are, so that's something to be aware of. Another option is Xero. Xero's like the QuickBooks Online of the UK, essentially. Very well known there, not as well known here, which can be a problem if you're trying to get support or your accountant might not be super comfortable with it. Xero has many similar features to QuickBooks Online, but it does have better receipt management. So if you're relying heavily on that, it might be worth looking into Xero. And it does have some more affordable pricing tiers and some really good customer support. So probably for most people, QuickBooks Online is going to be the best option. Wave, if you kind of just need that intermediate bookkeeping with great invoicing. Xero, if you're really looking to get into the receipt side more. Okay, so speaking of receipt management, this is all about controlling the monster. And not getting to January filing taxes and just having a huge pile of receipts and no idea what to do with them. That's what we want to avoid. So there's a few options for really managing your receipts, controlling the monster, avoiding that situation. Old school. This is a fabulous, fabulous option if you do it right. So this can be a shoebox of receipts, but organized by date, with notes on the receipt. One of my favorite things is to see receipts with detailed written notes on top. That makes it so easy to track things down, figure out how to categorize it. Because let's be honest, a week later, you might not remember what it was for. Another option is scan and store. I think this is probably the best option for most people. You can scan receipts as they come in, or you can do it monthly, or you could even do it quarterly, depending on how large your business is. Just don't scan them all at once in January, because you'll be very sad about bookkeeping, and we don't want you to be sad about bookkeeping. Once you've scanned them, I really recommend that you either upload them to some sort of cloud storage or you store them on a computer and then also have a backup. One of the big benefits of the scan and store method is that you have backups. It's easier to have backups, whereas the old school shoebox method, if you were to have flooding in your basement or something, all your receipts could be really destroyed. So that's one advantage of the scan and store method. It's also really easy to keep them organized in the scan and store. I like to organize them by account, and then within the account folder by year, and then within the year folder by month. That might not be necessary, that level of detail, again, depending on how many transactions and receipts you have. Another option is to incorporate them into your accounting software. So if you have QuickBooks Online, Xero, even Wave, you can get this as well. There's a scan feature in the app, and it will automatically extract the important information, bring it into your accounting software, match the receipt there, and store the receipt. So that can be a great option. And then you could also go with HubDoc or Dext. These are independent receipt management softwares, way more robust, but again, it's a price thing. So how much you want to get involved with that. Okay, let's talk about processes. So setting up easy processes that work for you. This is one of my favorite, I almost want to call it a trick, but it's not really a trick. Left to right. So this is a really great process for dealing with paper, and also I use it in baking a lot. So start with everything on your left, all papers that need to be processed, entered, scanned, whatever. And then as you get to the next one, you bring it in front of you, enter it, organize it, whatever you're doing. And then once you've completed it, it goes to the right, either to be organized or shredded or put away. Same works for baking. So if I get all my ingredients out, I always put them on my left, and then I put them in my bowl as I read off the recipe, and then put them on my right when I'm done and they're ready to go away. That's a great thing to do if you are trying to bake with other people in the kitchen. then it's really clear to everyone what has already been put in the bowl and you don't end up with the double salt situation. So same goes for bookkeeping as baking. Okay, next thing is repeatable. So I love to create a standard monthly bookkeeping checklist that you can follow each month. These are exactly the steps that I need to do in this order. This really allows you to make sure you did everything, first of all, but also not to get overwhelmed, because especially when you're starting out your own bookkeeping, you might sit down once a month and go, oh no, where do I start? What do I need to do? And then just get totally overwhelmed and bogged down by it. If you have a really simple, clear checklist you can follow, it totally takes away that overwhelm and it allows you to really use your time well and make sure you didn't skip any steps. Another process is having folders. So whether this is physical folders or digital folders, there's different ways to set them up. Digital folders, I like to set them up with the account first. So if it was a checking account, I would put checking and then the last four digits of the account. That just helps me to really find the account easily. Within that checking 1, 2, 3, 4 folder, I would have a folder for each year. And then within each year, have the statements clearly labeled in the same date convention. So I like to do month, day, year, and then which account it goes to, checking. So in the 2023 folder, that's just an example of how I would have things organized. And then for 2024, when the new year starts, opening that new folder and again, putting your statements in there. Again, having a savings folder, I would set it up exactly the same way. So account with the last four digits, and then each year would have a folder, and within each year would have the statements for that month. You can do the same thing with physical folders, but it's a little more complicated. You might be better off just having separate, completely separate folders for each year. Yeah. Okay, so dedicated bookkeeping time. The only way to get your bookkeeping done is to actually do it, and that requires time. I really recommend scheduling a time in your calendar to do it each week or month, depending on, again, that volume. And limit your time span to 1 hour, especially if you're someone who doesn't really like numbers or money things that much. You don't want to bite off more than you can chew, in a sense. You don't want to get totally burnt out and overwhelmed by it. So limiting it down to 1 hour can help you concentrate on what's important, get those tasks done, and get them done well. If you try and do this in a 4 hour block every 3 months, you're going to end up with not a great result. Consistency. So keeping that time scheduled in your calendar at the same time every week or every month is going to help with your consistency in getting that done. Staying on top of it and keeping it up to date is way easier than trying to go back and do a whole bunch of months at once. And again, keeping it in small chunks, the checklist and limiting to 1 hour can both help that as well. And then make it enjoyable. So make sure that bookkeeping is something you look forward to. That will help you ensure that you keep doing it and keep doing it well. So whether that is scheduling a time where you're going to your favorite cafe, or this is a time where you're going to put your favorite music on, or pop a seltzer. I love having a seltzer. So, whatever it is, I think that will help you. Have a nice pastry. Maybe when you do your bookkeeping, you have a nice pastry. Then you'll keep doing your bookkeeping. Okay, so always remember the goal. Keeping accurate financial records, easy, accurate, timely tax filing, stress-free getting that appropriate tax return, and then learning about your business's past financial performance and areas for improvement in the future. Okay, thank you very much. We are going to transition to some time for questions. Hopefully you came up with some questions because I love to answer those. Um, and, oh,
Hmm.
sorry.
Okay.
Um, And anyways, at the end of the presentation, there's a link for you to contact me and another link to the bookkeeping spreadsheet if you would like to use that as well. Okay,
Hmm. Yeah, we are starting right off. We've got one really good question here, pretty in depth. With
awesome.
Wave or QuickBooks, if you have one credit card only with a year-end summary PDF of expenses organized as fees, health and wellness, other such and such, if we upload the PDF to and those bank statements or a CSV, um, will the programs automatically organize those? Can you import files like that for ease of access?
I don't believe you can import them automatically categorized like that. QuickBooks or Wave will have suggestions about what they think it is. So, for example, if it sees kind of a charge for Irving, it might suggest, hey, this is a gas charge. And
Hmm.
that makes it a little easier for you, but it doesn't take that information directly from the credit card categorization. And I would say those aren't generally super accurate. The categories are great for tracking your personal spending, but not really for fitting those IRS categories. So,
Yeah, and I guess similar to that, I know I personally I'm pretty bad at keeping my receipts, but a lot of our modern banking and credit card apps have keep your history. If I don't have an exact receipt, is that something is that a suitable substitution?
oh wow, this gets all the accountants are riled up right now. Um,
Right.
there's a lot of debate on this, and I would really talk to your accountant about it. Um, in general, if you have a receipt for an under $10 purchase or something, if you're missing that, it's not a huge deal. You really want to make sure you have receipts for any high dollar value purchases. And it's really about making sure that you could go back and get that source documentation if you needed to. Right. So having
Yeah,
some verification of that is going to be helpful. Some things like subscriptions are really easy to track down and get those original receipts, even if you kind of lose it in the moment. So that would be more what I would think about.
absolutely. Now we have another one here. Let's see. What accounting knowledge slash questions can bookkeepers like yourself answer when a small business on a budget is worried about paying a lot more for an accountant?
Yeah, so accountants are really great and really provide a lot of tax specific advice. From a good bookkeeper, you can get those accurate, up-to-date financial records, and also an understanding of your financial statements. So what's going on with your expenses, your income, areas for improvement, a little bit of that analysis as well. And it's at a lower rate than an accountant is going to charge, which kind of speaks to the budget part as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that budget is an important thing to consider. And yeah, that's got a few more rolling in here. Perfect. We love to see
Great.
it. Um, so we got one more. What is the role of a bookkeeper or accountant if you're audited? How would payment work then?
So if you're audited, um, typically, I mean, if you have good bookkeeping records and a great accountant and you have those source documents, it's a pretty straightforward process. If you don't, you might need to hire someone to assist you with that, but kind of audit assistance is usually separate from kind of standard accounting or bookkeeping services.
Yeah, different service, different billing essentially.
Yep.
All right. Um, I have a small product-based business. I have income from my website, PayPal, Venmo, and a wholesale app called Zoho, even cash. Is there a way to have some of, if not all of those, linked to Wave or QuickBooks?
Yes, Wave will not let you won't allow you to connect that many accounts. So that would be your issue. But with QuickBooks, I believe you can connect Zoho. Um, depends on what your website payment processor is there. And PayPal you can connect. It kind of acts as a clearing account. It's a little more complicated to set up PayPal on there. Venmo, you cannot. The best thing to do with Venmo is to just have those transactions pull in from your bank and then to have your Venmo statement pulled up next to it and categorize the income that way.
Well, great question there from Katie. And we have one from Hector. Can you give examples of asset accounts?
Of asset accounts. Ooh, this one's fun. Okay, so most common ones you'll see is a vehicle that the business owns. So maybe an electrician's gonna have a van, right? That's a very common asset. Or if you were to have a building, land, anything like that is also gonna be an asset account.
Hmm, gotcha. Yeah, anything that is an asset to your business, really, sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, there is kind of a lower threshold, so in general, it's not going to be anything under $1,000.
Hmm,
But again, that is a conversation with your accountant. If it's kind of something getting to that point, like a computer, maybe you spend $2,000 on a computer, that might be considered an asset of your business, and your accountant may either consider to expense it, so it's
hmm,
not an asset, it's just an expense that year, or to track it as an asset. So again, talk with your accountant about that one.
hmm. We have a good one here as far as best time to get into and having a bringing on a bookkeeper or accountant. Um, what are the busiest times of year, especially since tax season just wrapped up pretty much, would now actually be a good time to get one on board.
Yeah, I think actually now would be a pretty good time. The extensions were extended because of the flooding, so some accountants are still working on stuff, even though it's after April 15th. But in general, I would say anytime after April 15th, before September, and then they get into filing extensions. And then October, kind of mid-October, November is a good time as well. But the
Hmm,
sooner you look for an accountant, the better, because there's fewer and fewer of them each year.
yeah, in a busier time, would it be harder to get questions answered in full detail? Someone's wondering.
Yes, I would imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
Yep.
All right. What would be the best form of bookkeeping if you have a sole prop business, solo proprietor, I believe? What's the best way to method to separate personal and business expenses?
Oh, this is one of my favorites. Have a separate account.
Good. You
So
could
even
keep
though
them
you're
completely separate.
Yeah, even though you're a sole proprietor, you do want to have a separate business account. It's going to make your life so much easier for bookkeeping. And then you don't have to sort through all of your personal transactions from the business every single month and try and reconstruct things that way. I think there's also something a little bit psychological about having a separate account set up for your business in that it helps you feel like it's a real business and that the income is separate from the rest of your life. So there's value in that there as well.
I can definitely imagine. All right, and last but not least, from Katrin here, confused about how to track our home as an asset if we're working out of it as our working out of our farmhouse slash farm. Any thoughts on that?
Whoa. Okay. I would probably need more information to answer this accurately, but if
Hmm,
it's a home office situation, and you're a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, then you would want to be tracking it for home office expense. And so that's really, you want to track your utilities for your home, mortgage
hmm,
payment, mortgage interest, property taxes, things like that.
hmm.
And then you typically take a square footage of your home office and it's
Okay.
a percent as a percentage of your house.
Yeah,
And
they do. They did just follow up saying that it is an LLC as a farm.
okay, so the farm aspect is where I do not know the details of the farm
Hmm,
part. And
yeah.
I don't know how much the house would would be considered part of that. It's probably the land value that they would need to be keeping track of.
All right. Not to plug here, but we do also Score offers a specific bookkeeping for agriculture business.
Of course. What does score not offer?
Yeah, a little bit of everything, but
If you don't
that
have a
might be.
score mentor, you should get one.
Hmm. I highly recommend it. Another one here from Anonymous. If there is $800 in income total we were sent in 2020, we're getting really numbers here,
Yeah, this is
and
great.
2021 through PayPal, but didn't formally receive the money. Money is still in limbo till I get PayPal my bank info. How would that be bookkeeped after the fact this year?
Oh, okay. So
That's
$800 in two separate 2022 and 2023. There's
2020 and 2021, they said. So they're a little, must have kept
whoa.
extending, I believe.
Well, first of all, I hope you get paid soon. And
Yeah, hopefully it works out.
second, it would depend on if you already, it sounds like you probably didn't claim that on your tax return in 2020 or 2021 because you didn't receive the money. And I'm guessing that your business is on cash basis for filing. So if you're on cash basis, you would consider that as income from the time you received it. So that would be in this year, the 1600.
Yeah, so hopefully they do receive it this year.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Question about education expenses. If we had tens of thousands of dollars in education expenses,
Whoa.
courses, classes, education not through university, we paid as an unlicensed health practitioner from the prior year. We didn't make money, but we carry over those losses.
I would say it's unlikely, especially if the continuing education was in order to get you in business, not continue your education once in business. Again, that's really more of a tax question, though.
Get a little further in depth on
Yeah.
that, maybe. All right. Unless anyone else has any further questions, I believe that was a great presentation. I expected nothing less. Right. But anyway, thanks everyone for attending. Oh, actually, sorry. I will thank Hector
Yeah.
saying thank you.
Oh, you're welcome,
Um,
Hector. Have a great
yeah.
afternoon.
Well, thank you everyone for attending today's workshop, especially Francis. Like we said, we will be sending out a survey shortly after, as well as the information provided today, recording, the slide deck, um, as well as contact information. And as a reminder, us here at Score Main, we offer free confidential mentoring, whether you're starting or growing your business. Feel free to visit score.org, fill out our form, or we're a nonprofit with the SBA, and feel free to also contact Frances with any further questions, or if you want to hire, you can have her give you your services.
And
Everyone's
this,
saying thank you. Lots of thank yous going out there from everyone, and
thanks,
thanks
everyone.
everyone again.
Yeah, and the score mentors are invaluable. So it's really a great resource. I've used it myself and a lot of my clients have. So
Hmm.
have a great afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Likewise.